Hi everybody, it's Chris at the Cloverdale Transit Authority, and today we've got a little bit different type of video than what you're used to seeing us put up online. And this is really more of a vlog about our trip on Father's Day weekend to the Age of Steam Roundhouse Museum in Sugar Creek, Ohio, which is not far from my home. And it was a great weekend, and I had not been down there since that museum construction started. But there's a little bit of a backstory to this. The fellow who collected all of this and had the vision for this museum was a guy named Jerry Jacobson. And my dad met Jerry in the mid-1980s. We had a neighborhood garage sale, and Jerry happened to ask my dad if he had any train stuff. And my dad said, "Oh, are you talking about like model railroad, what have you?" And he goes, "No, I mean real train stuff." And he wasn't kidding. But Jerry also had been in the 82nd Airborne, and my dad was in the 101st. And so they connected there. And with talking about trains, anytime you're around my family and you talk about history, you talk about the military, you talk about railroads, you're going to get into a conversation. And they got into a conversation, and a friendship ensued. And of course, Jerry saw that we had a lot of military stuff right there at our house. You know, one of the things that my dad and I always did was to restore vintage military vehicles, and Jerry loved that too. And my dad even helped him get a couple of vehicles over the years. But he actually lived across the street from our neighborhood. But he had a lot of careers. So he went from a paratrooper in the 82nd Airborne to a nurse, and then eventually a railroad tycoon, because in the late 1980s, Jerry started a short track railroad running freight. But then he also began collecting old locomotives and other equipment from that steam era. He formed the Ohio Central Railroad system, hauling freight, and he employed a lot of people. But then he continued to amass and restore an impressive steam era railroad collection. And where some of you out there, I'm sure, are like me, you sit there on eBay and you're looking for, you know, really cool find on a post-war Lionel locomotive. Well, Jerry was online looking for auctions for real railroad equipment, and some of it needed a little bit of love, but you know, that was the type of thing that he did. And I had visited the place where the equipment was stored, and they were working on it. My dad went down a lot of times. We got to be friends with, you know, people like our buddy Bill, who worked for Jerry for a long period of time and was not only into trains, but was also into military vehicles. And my dad would go down and work with those guys and help do some of this stuff to work on some of this equipment. So in 2008, Jerry sold Ohio Central Railroad System to Genesee in Wyoming, but then he had more time to collect this stuff. So he bought a site in Sugar Creek, Ohio, about 30 to 35 acres. It was kind of a soggy cornfield, and he started eventually moving stuff up there. And this was right along tracks that belonged to Ohio Central Railroad. And that was kind of the last that I saw of this stuff. And they started moving it, and it was this, again, cornfield, and there was track with cars on it and stuff wrapped in, you know, plastic tarps and everything. That was kind of the last that I saw. And one day my dad said, "Hey, Jerry's going to build a roundhouse down there in the Sugar Creek." And I remember thinking, well, there's no railroad yard or roundhouse in Sugar Creek, thinking he was going to restore an existing facility. And my dad's like, "Oh, no, he's going to build one." And I just thought, well, that can't be right. That's just totally crazy. What a huge project that would be. But by God, it actually happened. And though it's not an original site for a roundhouse and a railroad yard, boy, does it sure look like it. And you know, they eventually have about 2 miles of track for storage, and there's a depot, which is now the visitor center and store. There's a beautiful back shop for maintenance and restoration and just maintaining all of that stuff. But the king of it all is a perfectly detailed 18-stall brick roundhouse. And it's got a functioning turntable, and I mean, it's a functioning building, but I mean, it is very detailed. The lighting fixtures are, is exact what you would see. And this is the first full-size working roundhouse built in the United States since the early 1950s. And it was based on blueprints from a Denver and Fort Worth railroad roundhouse. So, I mean, this really is really authentic, and huge timbers in the ceiling. It's unbelievably impressive. It's like walking, into a time travel device and coming out and seeing what the age of steam in the 40s and 50s looked like. Sadly, Jerry passed away in 2017, but he left this legacy of the largest private collection of steam locomotives in the world. And one of the reasons we went there that weekend is, one, I, again, had not seen that. I'd seen pictures, I've seen video, but I'd never actually been there since this really all came together. Also, it was a steam weekend, and one of the featured steam devices, if we want to call it that, steam equipment, was the museum's Alco 060 steam locomotive. Is done as Moorhead and Norfolk number 12, but it was originally built in 1905, and it recently went through a series of inspections for operation, and they were pulling cars. Now, it wasn't a long pull. You go to the end of the yard and you'd switch and come back into the middle of the yard, and you'd go back to the yard limit and then switch and back to the depot. But it got a chance to look out the windows and see everything that was in the yard, because there's an ash pit, and there's a coal loader, and there's a wooden water tower, and just all this original equipment, and some of it in various stages of restoration. It was great to see all that stuff, and what a beautiful locomotive. If you like this video, don't forget to click on like, don't forget to subscribe, click the bell so you get the notification when we put videos up, and make sure you share this video with your friends, especially if they're into history and railroad history. This is a great place to go, and it's a great weekend for the family. Thanks, everybody. I'll see you on the next video.